So, let's actually uncover the riddle of the Tower of Babylon, with a lot of resources and information. Starting from the main source, we will use the Weld Blundell Prism, Sumerian King List cuneiform texts from the British Museum, and the Sumerian Mullapin cuneiform archive of the British Museum, and the Enumilish of the British Museum, versus the Dead Sea Scrolls, and see what the real truth is. Starting with the Sumerian accounts. Texts taken directly from the Sumerian Mullapin cuneiform archive of the British Museum. In heaven and the underworld, he settled 600 gods. After he had given all of them their instructions, and divided their shares to the eunuchu of heaven and underworld, the eunuchu opened their mouths to speak to Marduk, their lord. Now, Lord, who brought about our freedom, what good things can we do for you? Let us build a cult dais, whose name is called. Your cellar shall be our stopping place. We shall rest therein. We shall lay out the cult dais, and install its emplacement. On the date that we achieve this, we shall rest therein. When Marduk heard this, his appearance brightened greatly, like the day, and he said, Build Babylon and do the work that you request. May its brickwork be molded and build the cult dais high. The eunuchu wielded the hoe. The first year they made bricks. When the second year arrived, they raised the upper part of Esagil, a copy of the Apsu, and built the upper ziggurat of the Apsu for the gods, and Anu, they established his as dwelling. In majesty he sat before them, and its Esagil's horns faced the foundations of Izara. After they had done the work of the Esagil, all the eunuchu created their own cult daises. The 300 lit. 560s, Agigi of the heavens, and the 600 of the Apsu all gathered. The Lord, on the exalted dais which they had created as his dwelling, seated the gods, his fathers, at his banquet, saying, This is Babylon, the seat of your love. Sing joyfully at this place, so that they shall speak of its joy. The great gods sat down. They put down Zabadiaris' vessels, and sat down at the banquet. After they had performed a joyful Negata song inside it, Esagil, they performed the Takribta ritual in the awe-inspiring Esagil. All the instructions and plans were established. All the gods divided the positions of heaven and underworld. The great gods, 50 of them, sat down, and the 7 gods of destinies were established firmly to give decisions. Okay, so next verse is with Mars. In Sumerian, Mars is called Era. This will actually give the location of the Tower of Babel, or in its original name, the cult dais. And I actually laugh because all the people who don't read ancient cuneiform texts firsthand, and just watch YouTube videos and believe everything they see, well, as it states, the eunuchu wielded the hoe. The first year they made bricks. When the second year arrived, they raised the upper part of Esagil, a copy of the Apsu, and built the upper ziggurat of the Apsu. So basically it says, space aliens wanted a tower and picked up primitive hand tools themselves and built the ziggurat for themselves. With a hoe, bricks and mortar. Over 2 years with zero help of humans. To the planet Jupiter. Okay, that makes sense. Idiots. Next, Mars. In the oldest language, Mars is called Era. Also, while at night present in our sky, Mars' name is called Isham, the night watchman. Era opened his mouth to address Isham, his advance guard. He spoke the word, Isham, pay attention to me and listen to what I say concerning the people of the inhabited world about whom you say, save them. Advance guard of the gods, wise Isham, whose advice is good. I am the wild bull in heaven, I am the lion on earth, I am king, in the land I am the most furious among the gods, I am hero, among the Agigi I am the strongest, among the eunuchu I am the hunter, among livestock I am the battering ram into the mountain, I am fire in the reed bed, I am the battle axe in the forest, I am the standard when going on campaign, I blow like the wind, I rumble loudly like Hadad, like the sun, I check the circumference of everything. I am the wild sheep when I go out to open country. I enter the deserted land and take up residence in the animal stall. All the gods fear a fight and the black-headed people scorn me. As for me, because they do not fear my name and disobey Prince Marduk's word, he may act according to his heart. I will make Prince Marduk furious, remove him from his dwelling and flatten the people. The warrior Rera set his face towards Suanna, Babylon, the city of the king of the gods, Marduk. He entered Esagil, palace of heaven and earth, and stood before him. He opened his mouth to speak to the king of the gods. Why is the Sakatu adornment, symbol of your lordship, which was full of splendor like the heavenly stars, taken with dirt? Why is the face of the crown of your lordship, which made Ihalanki bright like Itmananki, covered? So, the warrior Rera set his face towards Suanna, Babylon, the city of the king of the gods, Marduk, Jupiter. He entered Esagil, palace of heaven and earth, and stood before him, which made Ihalanki bright like Itmananki. Suanna is the southernmost district of the western part of the eastern half of the inner city of Babylon. It is bounded on the south by the walls Imgar-Enlil and Nemeti-Enlil, with access in and out of the inner city by the Uras Gate, by the Arata River on the west, by the Eridu district on the north, and by the Tdoti district on the east. The temples Sagtila and Isazura were located in Suanna. Both buildings have been excavated. The processional way of the god Nabu, Nabu-Dayun-Nisasu, passed through this part of Babylon, from the Uras Gate in the south to Esagila in the north, in the Eridu district. According to Tinter equals Babylon v. lines 92a-93, the southern border of the Eridu district and the northern border of the Suanna district was the market gate, Babmahiru, one of the former city gates of Babylon. This next part of the cuneiform texts explains everything. Why Jupiter is kings of all the gods, why Jupiter is chief in the book of Genesis, why he is Zeus, Marduk, Jupiter Ammon, and why the importance. Jupiter brought the great flood. Jupiter changed the place of the Masu tree, which is the orbits of all the planets. Jupiter sustained the ecosystem and brought order to the solar system. The king of the gods opened his mouth to speak to Hera, hero of the gods, and said, Warrior Hera, concerning that work that you recommend to do, long ago, I did become furious, left my dwelling and brought about the flood. When I left my dwelling, the judgment of heaven and earth was dispelled. The heavens were made to tremble, such that the positions of the heavenly stars changed and did not return to their place. The underworld rocked, in such a way, that the yield of the furrow diminished and became forever difficult to rely on. The judgment of heaven and earth was dispelled, in such a way, that underground water diminished and high water receded. When I turned to look at it, it had become difficult to undo it. The creations of living beings depleted and did not return to their place, until, like a farmer, I could hold all their seed in my hand. I made a house and sat inside. As to the appearance of the Sakatu adornment, which was pushed away in the flood and had become dark, I commanded the fire god to make my countenance shine and to cleanse my garments. After he made the Sakatu adornment bright and finished the work for me, I dressed in the crown of my lordship and returned to my place. My appearance was haughty and my look fearsome. The people who were left behind in the flood saw the accomplishment of the work. Should I, now, set my weapons in motion and destroy the rest? I made those craftsmen descend to the Apsu and did not command them to go up. I changed the place of the Masu tree and amber and did not show anybody. Now then, warrior Hera, concerning that work that you recommend, where is the Masu tree, flesh of the gods, symbol of the king of the universe, the pure tree, exalted young man, which is appropriate to Lord, the roots of which reached the depths of the underworld, 100 baru, into the wide sea. So, now you know what the occult tree means. The Masu tree. Often it is said to be the tree of life, or it has some metaphysical use, or some hidden knowledge of some powers, etc. You get the point. However, everything evolves around the Masu tree, Jupiter's orbit, which in turn controls the orbits of the planets with the Sun. Jupiter says, the appearance of the Sakatu adornment, which was pushed away in the flood and had become dark. 2, then says, I commanded the fire god to make my countenance shine and to cleanse my garments. 3. After he made the Sakatu adornment bright and finished the work for me. Sakatu adornment is the sun, Sakatu is the light and rays. So, we know as fact Jupiter's center of mass 318 times more than the combined planets. We know the mass of Jupiter is pushing on the surface of the Sun. Thus Jupiter's arrival in our solar system was enough to push the Sun back from Earth, and Earth became dark. Okay. The Sumerian accounts of the tower's destruction. The north wind arises and the night finishes, and the god that in its eclipsing, on the east side above, and clears on the south side below, and, in, you observe the eclipsing and, into, the north wind. The decision is given for the king of Akkad. The king of Akkad, rebellion among them. A land will become embroiled in a small land for booty and a stable peace. A stable peace will be brought to the king, rebellion will take place among them and livestock will be destroyed. In Abu on the 28th day you observe the start of its appearance, and on the 14th day of Ululu you will be able to predict the eclipse. The day of the moon's disappearance will show you the eclipse. The decision is given for Sabatu. Sabatu and Gutium will become hostile. Brother will smite brother. People will die. There will be many widows. The king of Sabatu will make peace with the lands. The god who went until it's becoming halved, thus is its omen, and its decision. If, on the 14th day of Sabatu an eclipse takes place and the god in its eclipsing becomes eclipsed on in the south side above and clears on the east side, above, there is a north wind, and it begins the dawn watch and appears with the sun. Its horns penetrate heaven. It obscure all of its Zurinu and disappears. Observe on the 28th day and the eclipse is near. It becomes red and it will show you the eclipse. The god. You observe its eclipsing and you take into account the north wind. The decision, Babylon. Babylon, its destruction, close together. In Lil, all of the land to whom they said yes, his destruction is near. Tel Imran in Babylon. The red marking in the trench is the approximate find spot of the two fragments of the stele depicting the ziggurat. To the south is the modern Imran sanctuary. The Sagil temple of Marduk is marked by the large pit with the surrounding green dots showing still visible upper parts of later pits from excavation. The blue marking is a Parthian house where many broken precious objects were excavated. North of the Tel are the remains of the 90 by 90 meters Itmananki ziggurat with the preserved 60 by 60 meters mud brick core, and in the surrounding water the 15 meters wide baked brick mantle. And, back to the space aliens, so let me get this right, Mars, I am the wild bull in heaven, I am the lion on earth, I am king, in the land I am the most furious among the gods, I am hero, among the Agigi I am the strongest, among the Anunnaki I am the hunter, among livestock I am the battering ram into the mountain, I am fire in the reed bed, I am the battle axe in the forest, I am the standard when going on campaign, I blow like the wind, I rumble loudly like Hadad, like the sun, I check the circumference of everything, I am the wild sheep when I go out to open country, I enter the deserted land and take up residence in the animal stall. All the gods fear a fight. So, not only do space aliens build towers for themselves, by themselves, using primitive hand tools, to a Jupiter, the Anunnaki are scared of Mars, a planet, and all the aliens fear a fight, with a planet, Mars. Okay, that makes sense too. Idiots. See what I mean? With just 2 pages of cuneiform texts, it had totally destroyed Zecharia Sitchin's novels. And yes, you heard that right, all of Zecharia Sitchin books, if you bother to research, the books were, and always was, sold as novels, in the 1970s and 80s. Idiots. Okay, so, we know the Tower of Babel was built solely on the grounds that Jupiter shone like the day, and did so for many years after, and at the same location. That's because, as we know, Jupiter brought the Great Flood, and Jupiter orbit is still closer to the Earth, and so is Mars. Mars is so close, Mars can cause havoc on the Earth, and is why Mars is on every war banner. Mars is the battering ram into the mountains, Mars flattens the people, Mars is feared by all the gods. Mars is also called Isham, the night watchman. The Tower or ziggurat was actually destroyed through wars during the time of King Akkad. In fact, why not take it a step further? I decided to go through the Sumerian Weld Blundell prism, Sumerian kings list, and follow the gods myself, starting from the beginning before the flood, and see if there is anything that's unusual or any proof of such astronomical events. And indeed there is. I listed the kings, and their dates, and tracked the movements, by following the chief, the star, before the time of Marduk, Jupiter, during pre-flood antediluvian times. And I was surprised. I listed the 6 times the rulership changed and moved location, because only the city who is located in the god's presence, can claim capital city. First, the movements of the chief is small, starting from the founding city Eridu, rulership which from heaven descended. At Eridu rulership began. At Ulim was king. He ruled 28,800 years. Alagar ruled 36,000 years. 2 kings. 64,800 years they ruled. Eridu was overthrown. As time or the ages progresses, the distances get much greater, till eventually stretching over the whole of Assyria and Babylon, then back to its original area, so it would seem the planet was retrograding. The rulership to Bad Tiberu passed. At Bad Tiberu in Munlu Anna ruled 43,200 years. In Mongol Anna ruled 28,800 years. Dumuzizi ruled 36,000 years. 3 kings. They ruled 108,000 years. Bad Tiberu was overthrown. The rulership was established at Larak. At Larak and Sibziana ruled 28,800 years. 1 king. He ruled 28,800 years. Larak was overthrown. The rulership passed to Sippa, was king and ruled 21,000 years. 1 king. He ruled 21,000 years. Sippa was overthrown. The rulership was established at Shuruppak. At Shuruppak Ibadadu was king and ruled 18,600 years. 1 king. He ruled 18,600 years. 5 cities 8 kings. They ruled 241.200 years. The deluge came upon the land. After the deluge had come, at Sippa in Mendurana. So, the rulership was established at Larak, and, the rulership was established at Shuruppak. So, to establish, means these cities either were newly founded, or it's the first time of the city's recognition. And then finally, one last erratic jolt back, then again in the other direction over great distances. So, who and what planet or god is this? It cannot be Jupiter because it's pre-flood times. This planet can only be one of 2 planets, Saturn or Mars. So I checked using the Sumerian Weld Blundell prism, and I was surprised. The star Elim is identified with Imzara, Nergal, Mars, doorkeeper of Nergal, leader, champion. So, it appears Mars was the leading god during pre-flood antediluvian times. Mars' orbit pattern is totally different today, and if Mars is chief, then it would also rewrite antediluvian history and paleohistory, such as Stonehenge or Göbekli Tepe Temple, and Mars did not orbit around the Sun, as it is impossible for any planet to remain in a fixed location, or a location spanning thousands of years. The only possible answer is Mars was in retrograde with Saturn, and closer to the Earth. Mars was moving between Earth and Saturn, retrograding back and forth or in circular orientation. Because as Mars says, like the Sun, I check the circumference of everything. Which would mean, Mars moves in a circular or ecliptic orbit, between Earth and Saturn. This would also mean no asteroid belt existed during pre-flood antediluvian times, though upon further reading it is obvious the asteroid belt is a remnant of the planet Tiamat, which Jupiter destroyed with thunderbolts, when he brought the flood. Which reads, "The Lord raised the flood, his great weapon, he rode, of the storm, that cannot be faced, terrible. He hitched to it the team of 4, he harnessed them at its side, murderer, merciless one, destroyer, flyer. Their lips were open, their teeth bore poison, They did not know getting tired, they knew overwhelming. He set up on his right terrifying battle and combat, on the left war that repels all allies. He was clad in a garment of a battle array of terrors, he was wearing on his head an aura of terrifying appearance. The Lord started out, he advanced on his way, he set his face towards Tiamat who was furious. He was holding an incantation on his lips, while gripping in his hand a plant, an antidote to poison. At that time the gods were running round him, they were running round him, the gods his fathers were running round him, the gods were running round him. He Lord spread out his net, and, encircled her, he released in her face the destructive wind, the one occupying the rear. Tiamat opened her mouth to swallow, he made the destructive wind go in so that she could not close her lips. The violent winds bloated her stomach, her insides were paralyzed, she opened her mouth wide. He shot an arrow, he broke open her stomach, he cut through her innards, he split her insides. He defeated her and extinguished her life, he threw down her corpse, he stood on it. After he had killed Tiamat the leader, he dispersed her troops, he scattered. And the gods, her helpers, the ones who went at her side, began to tremble, they became afraid, they turned their course. So, first, the Lord raised the flood, his great weapon. Second, he hitched to it the team of 4, he harnessed them at its side. Third, they did not know getting tired, they knew overwhelming. The gods his fathers were running round him, the gods were running round him. So, the gods of his fathers, were running around Jupiter, that would be Saturn. As for the other 3, it could only mean Mars and Venus and Mercury. So, what about the biblical account? Can we back this up? Well, yes, actually we can. The Dead Sea Scrolls tell a different story with King James Version, because story actually fits the Sumerian epic, which reads, Genesis 11, all the country was agreed for settled objects. But some of them marching from the east arrived at a plain in the bushland, and halted there. Then each said to his neighbor, come, let us set to work making bricks, and see that they are properly burnt, and bricks shall serve us for stone, and petroleum for mortar. So they agreed, we will build here for ourselves a city and a tower whose top shall reach the sky. Thus we will make a beacon for ourselves, so that we may not be scattered over all the surface of the country. But a chief came down to inspect the city and the tower which the sons of men had built, and the chief said, you see, all these people are united in the same purpose, and having begun to do this they will not be restrained from anything they determine upon. I will go down and frustrate their designs, so that one will not listen to another's proposals. So the chief scattered them over the surface of the whole country, and they abandoned the building of the city. They therefore called its name Babel, because it was there that the chief confused the designs of all the country. Thus from the Lord scattered them over all the surface of the land. So, the chief changed and confused the designs of the builders, so that they could not all agree on each other's proposals, and frustrated them. Because Jupiter still hasn't settled in its new orbit after its arrival in our solar system, which caused the Great Flood, Jupiter's orbit is still erratic and unpredictable. Jupiter changed the place of the Masu tree, which in turn scattered the builders, astrologers and the peoples over the whole country. Mars would also have an unsettled orbit, as well as Venus. As for Mercury, Prometheus sacrificed himself, so that answers Mercury. Once again, Paleo-Hebrew, Aramaic Hebrew Dead Sea Scrolls are very different to the King James. From an occultist and typologiest point of view, the Old Testament is completely pagan, retaining mostly Assyriology and Babylon texts, stories and cryptic astrology. Very little of the Old Testament is outside of the Eastern Mediterranean area. As a typologist, it's easy put aside any religious thoughts, and pull out subtext, context and allegories, providing you have the original texts and not some book printed last year, or some book you are told or forced to read. And in the days of the sinners the years shall be shortened, and their seed shall be late on their lands and fields, and all on the earth shall alter, and shall not appear in their time. And the rain shall be kept back, and the Shemaim shall withhold. And in those times the fruits of the earth shall be backward, and shall not grow in their time, and the fruits of the trees shall be withheld in their time. And the moon shall alter her order, and not appear at her time. And in those days the sun shall be seen, and he shall journey in the evening on the extremity of the great chariot in the west, and shall shine more brightly than accordance with the order of light. And many chiefs of the stars shall transgress the order, and these shall alter their orbits and tasks, and not appear at the seasons prescribed to them. Egypt, Greek Solon, the wise lawgiver of Athens, one of the 7 sages, 560 BC. There is a story, which even you have preserved, that once upon a time Phaethon, the son of Helios, having yoked the steeds in his father's chariot, burnt up all that was upon the earth, and was himself destroyed by a thunderbolt. Now this has the form of a myth, but really signifies a declination of the bodies moving in the heavens around the earth, and a great conflagration of things upon the earth. At such times those who live upon the mountains and in dry and lofty places are more liable to destruction than those who dwell by rivers or on the seashore. And from this calamity the Nile, who is our never-failing Saviour, delivers and preserves us. When, on the other hand, the gods purge the earth with a deluge of water, the survivors in your country are herdsmen and shepherds who dwell on the mountains, but those who, like you, live in cities are carried by the rivers into the sea. Whereas in this land, neither then nor at any other time, does the water come down from above on the fields. The traditions preserved here are the most ancient. The fact is, that whatever happened either in your country or in ours, or in any other region of which we are informed, if there were any actions noble or great or in any other way remarkable, they have all been written down by us of old, and are preserved in our temples. After the stream from heaven, like a pestilence, comes pouring down and leaves you destitute of letters and education, you have to begin all over again like children. As for those genealogies of yours, Solon, they are no better than the tales of children. In the first place you remember a single deluge only, but there were many previous ones. In the next place, you do not know that the formerly dwelt in your land the fairest and noblest race of men which ever lived, and that you and your whole city are descended from a small seed or remnant of them which survived. The survivors of that destruction died, leaving no written word,